Culture. Before delving into where one fits in their global locality, both as an agent and as a product, as a result of this aspect of society, one must first ask, what is culture? And intriguingly, yet slightly more confusingly, this is an open-ended question. Not because the current state of culture at this exact very moment in time, as my thoughts translate to pitch and tone, is murky or ambiguous, but because culture is evolving. Culture is constantly expanding to incorporate new things, be it ideas or actions or otherwise, and resultantly can never truly be encompassed in one single frame of wording. It's no wonder the New Yorker recently described culture as confusing. This is, however, unnecessary anxiety. The groundwork of a cultural inventory does not have to be an exact science, it simply needs to form the basis of further, more intricate understanding and analysis. I like to approach the idea of culture from quite a broad perspective. For me, culture is tradition, an opinion heavily influenced by the work of United States professor Michael Dillon Foster, particularly in his 2011 work, The UNESCO Effect. To express acutely, culture, to me at least, is any event in the past which may influence the way a particular person or group of people think or act in the future. Event in this sense is wide-ranging, possibly being the painting of an artwork or the singing of a song. This is the thought behind culture's inherently expanding nature, as previously mentioned. Continuing on with this importance of tradition, as put forward by Manuel Castells, identity is heavily related to culture, and culture depends on identity, so it becomes sensible to analytically approach the concept and process of culture from the frame of the individual. That individual is myself, a 19-year-old part-time working full-time university student. Those aspects alone bring a wealth of cultural information, predominantly as a product but also as an agent for cultural globalization. For work, I drive a German car to deliver Italian food. At university, I study a degree about the world taught by an Australian lecturer with Filipino heritage. There is simply too much to cover. For this reason, I'll be breaking my personal sphere into two separate categories: my city and myself. Sydney's culture is undoubtedly the manifestation of countless microcultures, a term defined by Miami University professor Mark Peterson as distinct patterns of learned and shared behaviour, as well as thought found within a larger cultural system. Throughout its history, Sydney has been the site of an eternal struggle between cultural imperialism, homogeneity and hegemony against hybridization, heterogeneity and cosmopolitanism. Modern Sydney began life through the most brutal form of cultural imperialism, colonialism, disrupting the previously present indigenous cultures of 40 to 60,000 years with devastating effect. A succession of Anglo governments kept the population and subsequent culture of Sydney largely homogenous of white Europeans through the White Australia policy and other strict immigration practices. However, this changed dramatically in the second half of the 20th century, leading to the Sydney of today that I live in. Geographically, the city mixes cultures, yet distinct trends still exist. The northern beaches consist predominantly of Anglo culture, eastern Sydney of European, central Sydney of Asian, and western Sydney of Middle Eastern more than any other part of the city. This is the aforementioned struggle between homogeneity and heterogeneity, a diverse city still holding on to general ethnic divisions. My particular area, the Lower North Shore, consists of mainly Anglo-European culture. A niqab or a burqa at the local supermarket would be a rare sight. I do, however, travel within Sydney. I attend an ethnically and racially diverse university, which hosts students from both Australia and abroad, with most of my classes situated close to Chinatown. My lunch breaks commonly consist of pickings from the Chinese supermarket not far from the library, a result in the local trade and consumption of human migration, not only by the friendly family that run the supermarket, but also by the growing Chinese population in central Sydney that search for some cuisine comforts from home and bring the majority of the supermarket's business. One noticeable aspect of cultural globalization in this part of Sydney is the architecture. As the local post-industrial economy grows, central city land becomes less valuable for trades and factories than for high-rise residential unit blocks and white-collar offices. This is causing a gradual but noticeable shift in Sydney, greatly increasing the city's population density, among other factors. The architecture change is also influenced by another factor, which is the origin of the majority of investors and buyers in these new developments being from Asia, predominantly mainland China. The latter culture in particular commonly holds the white picket fence dream in lesser regard than their Anglo-Saxon Australian counterparts, and are more accepting of living in a high-rise unit for its convenience and cost benefits. A live above, shop below scenario is highly sought after in luxury apartments, and so this architectural platform has become the standard of any luxury residential development in the city. And so, one is left with the question, is the city's culture becoming more or less heterogenic? This is a very tricky question to answer directly. However, one must consider that as of the 2016 census, Australia's population is no longer of a predominantly British heritage, and so assuming the local culture norm to be that of Anglo-Saxon is a bias, especially in the big cities. And so where does that leave me in the city of Sydney? Well, as Darren Barney would put it from his 2004 work, I am an identity in a network society, an identity built on community and culture, and so from that, I am Sydney. I'm a part of it, at least, but more importantly, Sydney is my identity, my cultural identity. Cultural globalisation has facilitated an immeasurable portion of my identity. The emergence of the Internet society has allowed for the setting of network-based presentation created on a US-designed, Chinese-made computer with the use of an American camera. The visual background serves not only as a blank template for occasional script, but as a visualization of the concepts I have explained. This time-lapse was made over a 3-hour period, beginning at 7 on a Tuesday night. The supermarket is open throughout, the streets continue to bustle with car and pedestrian traffic. The community is alive into the night. This is the changing culture of Sydney. It's the identity of Sydney. It's the identity of those who live in it, including myself. Oh, and that cool intro song. It's a Canadian song, a piece of their culture, borrowed and intermingled with our own, my own, all due to one thing, cultural globalization. Here it is again. Thank you.
We're finding other ways around, and we're drawing